Hello there, warriors. I'm back for another episode that really focuses on a chapter of my latest book, Burn the Map. And in this one, this is called Forged in the Fire. And I wanted to ask you something first. Do you ever feel like you've been forged in the fire? I mean, we all wish that we could escape life's adversities, don't we? Right? We avoid them like the plague. We would rather have smooth sailing. Of course, who wouldn't? Life doesn't work like that. It comes with adversity. And then there's this whole thing about, adversity builds character. I remember thinking, okay, I'm enough of a character. I don't need any more adversity. But that is actually the fact. We can learn in good times, and we should. But really, the deepest lessons, the ones I think are the most important, the things that bring out the best in us, they happen when the what hits the fan. They happen through adversity. But yet we fight it. We feel like we have this kind of notion that we can somehow avoid it, and we try. And, there are probably some types of adversity and situations that you probably should avoid. But life is going to come at all of us to varying degrees. And so, this chapter in my book called Forged in the Fire is really all about that. And not just letting you know that life comes with adversity. I think most of you have figured that out already. You don't need a book to tell you that. But rather, helping you to embrace it, helping you to stop looking at adversity as something that's here to destroy you. What if it's here to serve you? I mean, isn't that a new way to look at it? What if adversity really could serve you? So while nobody shoves their way to the front of the line, when they're handing out adversity, if you do it right, if you go through your adversity with a certain attitude, you will come out the other end a better person. I would say that, yes, I would much rather that my daughter Jamie didn't go through 15 years of addiction. I wish she was never shot when she was 18 and got addicted to the painkillers they gave her in the hospital. I wish that she hadn't been murdered almost 9 years now. I'm actually recording this the day before the 9th angel anniversary. It seems almost crazy. I'm sure I wish all that hadn't happened and then I was just the same person, because I don't feel like I was, a bad person before. I think I was a good person. But I have to say that in so many ways, I'm a better person. I've learned and grown and changed in ways that I'm glad. Man, it came at a high cost though. And so here's the deal though. If these adversities are going to hit us and there's nothing we can do about it, and yes, some of them will come at a very high cost, why not learn from them? I feel like it's important for us to understand that the fire doesn't just refine you, it reveals you. It brings out who you really are. I want you to listen to a conversation I had with my niece Shawnie. And if you've been listening to this series or you have a copy of Burn the Map, you know that Shawnie was Jamie's best friend. She was born 3 months after Jamie. They were literally best friends from day one. And oh my gosh, they had such a special relationship. And of course, when the hit the fan with Jamie's addiction, things changed. But anytime they got together, it was like nothing had ever changed. They were the same exact two little girls. I remembered all those years. But Jamie died a month after Shawnie's little brother died. But Shawnie said something about what I'm talking about right now, and I want you to listen to what she had to say.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I had I've had several people, friends, family members tell me how different of a person I am for the better. And not that I was some terrible bad person, but we all grow, right? And Shane was so wise. He was my little brother, but so wise and taught me so many things, and things that he would maybe challenge me on, or ways of life, or just positive, optimistic ways of looking at things. Maybe he would try to give me a little pearl every now and again. And whether I took it or left it, I think that I wasn't able to show him that the things that he knew about life and try to teach me about life that they were actually sticking. And eventually, I think it was that coupled with all of the work I did for myself after he passed away that it really did change me, for obviously the better, in being more patient with life, being more understanding, um, for people and just how people react, and not really caring or judging if they do like what you do or not like what you do, and just kind of staying in your own lane and creating your own happiness, um, and just a more relaxed person. I think I'm, in general, just a more easygoing, relaxed, chill version of myself now.
You know, when Shawnie told me that she wished her brother could see the version of herself that she is today, when I was interviewing her for the book, I told her what I'm telling you. You wouldn't be the version of yourself had you not gone through what you did. So, what I want you to really think about is the stories that move us. I mean, the ones that inspire us, the ones that get down into our soul, that make us believe we can do something too, even if it has nothing to do with that story. Those are the stories that inspire us. You know, we might be intrigued by royalty or even so-called celebrity, but those aren't really the stories that move us unless they have a story that moves us. It's always the ones who were forged in the fire, who fought through adversity, who came out the other end, even if they were covered in ashes, singed hair, they come out the other side. And those are the people that we look to for belief and hope. And that can be you. Not only do you need to face your adversity, learn from it, grow from it, accept it, and even embrace it, but you're doing it not just for yourself, you're doing it so you can be one of those stories. I mentioned some women in this book, in this chapter, and they're famous people. But your story can be just as impactful. It doesn't have to make headlines. It doesn't have to be in the history books. It will be in somebody's history book. So when I was writing this chapter, I got to thinking about the time when I lived in Key Biscayne. It was a little island on the bay there in Miami, off of Miami, or next to Miami. I guess you can't be off of Miami, can you? Anyway, it was this little island, and the turtles would come and nest there. And so one night we went with these guides, and we were able to watch. I mean, literally, there was nothing we could do. They told us not to touch them. All we could do was watch and maybe keep predators away. What we were told was that they had to make it to the ocean by themselves. It wouldn't help. They had to be the one to make it using the moonlight in the dark, fight their way over those sand waves, getting lost. Some of them got very disoriented, and they had to do that. If they didn't go through that, they may not be able to make it back for mating season. I mean, literally, by us helping them, it could have ruined their lives and even ended some of their lives. Well, guess what? Oh my gosh, years before that, probably 20 years before that, Rich and I were in Mexico, and we were staying at this resort, and it was the same thing. It was long before we learned what we did on Key Biscayne, and they told us to come and help us get these little turtles to the ocean. So guess what they told us to do? Pick them up and throw them into the ocean. That's what we were told to do. It made me sick when I learned on Key Biscayne what we were supposed to do. What we were supposed to do is not interfere. We needed to allow them to make it to the ocean. Sometimes we do this with other people. We don't want them to make it to the ocean on their own. We don't want them to have to use the moonlight. We don't want them to have the adversity. We don't want them to get disoriented or lost and then have to find their way. We don't want them to be in pain. So we try to save them. I did that with Jamie's addiction. I tried to save her from it. I mean, who wouldn't? But it wasn't my fight. It wasn't my adversity. Now, because I love her so much, it became my adversity, but it was my own adversity. It was my guilt, my shame, my heartbreak. Yes, our paths were intertwined, but they were separate. And that was a really hard lesson to learn. It took me 13 years. 13 years before I pulled the emergency brake on the roller coaster from hell and got off. And I let Jamie go, knowing full well that, one of two things would happen. She would find her way to the ocean, or she would find her way to heaven. And of course, we know what happened, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in another episode. But I thought that story was really telling, wasn't it? Very interesting. Now, I want to talk about sort of the other side of it. Sometimes we cause way too much adversity for ourselves. We bring it upon ourselves. We make life more difficult than we need to. And you know what? I think you can agree, it's tough enough. We don't need to make it harder. So I saw this video of this little girl, and I mean, she was like 3 years old, and had a full-size putter in her hand. She was on a putting green, and she was trying so hard to get this ball in the hole. And she wasn't very far from the hole, but she just couldn't get it in. And you know what's interesting is, I mean, I'm a golfer. I haven't really golfed a lot lately, but knowing the game and knowing how difficult it is and knowing how frustrating it is, knowing how frustrated I've become watching other people become frustrated, I was pretty impressed with this little girl. She finally realized this is not happening. She picked up the ball, put it right next to the hole, and tapped it in. I thought it was the cutest thing. And she was so proud of herself. But it really was a story I wanted to tell, because I thought, is that exactly what we do sometimes? Sometimes, yes, we do need to stop avoiding adversity, but I'm talking about sometimes when we're making our lives more difficult, we just need to put the ball closer to the hole. Oh my gosh, I really hope you get a copy of Burn the Map, because even if you're listening to these episodes, I just know that you're going to read. And even if you're not a big reader, it's it's kind of weird to say that it's a quick read, but it's so jam packed. I really feel like, especially because I told stories of other people, I really feel like it's a page turner. And I say that with all humility. I really feel like you're going to not want to put it down. And so I hope you'll do that. Go get Burn the Map. And then I talked about some minefield moments. So this is kind of like when adrenaline kicks in and something just happens out of the blue that isn't a long-term thing, like an illness or Jamie's addiction, something like that. But sometimes we have these moments that forge us. And maybe it's a day or two, but they're shorter term and may not have lifelong implications, but they are still just as impactful, or they can be. And I think we've all had these, what I call minefield moments. So it's like the time when I was on the big island of Hawaii. I was not there for vacation. It was January. I was there on a business trip, and Sean had been in the hospital only a couple of weeks before, and he had sinus surgery and tonsils and adenoids. And the head of ENT at Children's Hospital in Seattle did the surgery, and he's the one that told me he's fine. I didn't think he was fine. He kept telling me some kids take longer, put him back in daycare, everything's fine. I'm a single mom. Sean is 1.5. So I go to Hawaii on this business trip, and I really didn't want to go. I was nervous about leaving my kids. But anyway, I was talked into it. I went. I was not there a day when I got the news that Sean was being rushed back to Children's and he was comatose. They couldn't wake him up. He had like 106 temperature. The long story short was that all of his surgery was infected. So yeah, that was a whole nother story for another day. But the panic that I had, of course, being all the way on the big island of Hawaii and having to get back to Seattle, was worsened by the fact that the weather was not good and a storm kicked in and they closed the airports. I could not get off the island. And it's a long story, but it was really hard for me. It was very hard. But you know what? I have a mama bear inside of me. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to get there and everything's going to be okay. And I'm going to make sure. I mean, like I had any control over it, right? So it took me 23 hours to get to Sean. And then when I got there and I picked him up out of his bed, I was so happy to see him. He went like this and leaned back and he looked over at his dad and he reached for him and said, "My daddy, my daddy, my daddy." I was devastated. I wish Sean were here on this episode. Maybe I'll mention it in another one. You can he'll crack up over it, because look how close we are. He wanted his dad. But those are moments that can define us too, because I became, trust me, what I became when I had to go against this big hospital and this big doctor about what had happened. Yeah, that was something that forged me in a very small and short fire, but it was impactful, and it has helped me when other people have been in the hospital. It's helped me learn how to be an advocate. So you see, I learned through that situation. I tell another story in here, but I don't want to tell all my stories. I want you to get the book and read about it. One of the main things I want you to get out of this episode in this chapter is that adversity is your superpower. Like I said before, it is not here to take you down. It is actually here to teach you. It is here to serve you. And I know it doesn't feel like that when it's happening. It feels terrible, depending on what you're going through. If somebody had told me that during at least the 13 years of Jamie's addiction, I would have laughed. I would have said, what are you talking about? The nerve of you to say something like that to me. But it's what I've learned. I mean, sure, I wish I could go back now and realize sooner that I had no control over it and to just try to learn from it. Because sometimes we don't want to learn anything. I didn't want to learn anything. I just wanted it to stop. I wanted my life to go back to normal. I wanted to get my life back. And so I would like to finish this episode in the same way that I've finished some of the other episodes, which was definitely not a plan. I didn't plan to read anything from the book, but I just feel like these closing paragraphs are so powerful that I think it's important for me to read them. But before I do that, I really want you to, and I don't know, these closing paragraphs, I might be repeating myself, but that's okay. I really want you to look at your life and whatever adversity you're facing now. And if you're not facing any right now, I'd like you to just hold on to what I'm going to say next. If you're facing some adversity, I want you to take a step back. I want you to picture yourself past the adversity. Whatever it is, the outcome has occurred. Whatever it is, what could you learn from it? How could you strengthen yourself? How could you grow? How could you be an inspiration to other people? And I think that's what's so important. And in a later episode, in a later chapter of Burn the Map, I'm going to talk more about that, about, we need to make sure that whatever we go through is not wasted. It's not something that you just trudge through, get over, get through. Thank God that's over. You can feel that way. But if you haven't taken anything from it, you've missed the point. If you haven't taken anything from it that you can help other people with. Like I said earlier, you don't have to be famous. You don't have to have some life-altering, world-changing story. Your story can be life-altering and world-changing for at least one other person. The last part of the chapter called Forged in the Fire in my book, Burn the Map, is called Your Superpower. And here's what I wrote. Strength and character are forged in the middle of a storm, but they're also built in the in-between. So let me just stop here for a moment. We can learn and grow in between, in the littler things too, that are still adversity, roadblocks. It's not always the huge things. We have so many opportunities on a daily basis to learn and grow and impact the world. Okay, back to this part. In the tiny battles, the course corrections, the times you show up when no one's watching, it's in the choices you make, the perspective you keep, and how you respond when life shouts, let me see what you're made of. You don't have to be happy about adversity. I'm not saying that. I never told you to be happy about it. But what if you didn't simply accept it as what if you didn't simply accept it as a necessary part of life, but fully embraced it? I've been mentioning that, haven't I? What if you fully embraced it? I've even had moments in adversity. And by the way, I know that Jamie's addiction, being shot the first time and being murdered, is huge. I've had a ton of other big, big adversities. And the weirdest thing is, I've had moments where I have felt almost happiness and joy in the middle of my adversity. Thank you, God, that I was able to embrace it. Because adversity isn't just something to get through or grow from. It's something you can use. Let it sharpen your character. Amplify your faith. Oh boy, I could just do a whole chapter on that. Refine your mission. Let it carve out the kind of strength you didn't know you had. You weren't just built to withstand the fire, you were forged by it. Stop treating adversity like it's the villain in your story. It's not your kryptonite, it's your current, your fuel. Adversity is your superpower. You weren't just forged in the fire, you were made for it. And that's the fact. No matter who you are, no matter what you're like, no matter what your personality is like, no matter how you feel about courage, you are courageous. And let me tell you what, Burn the Map has courage laced throughout and proof, page after page, that everybody is courageous. Every single person can not just make it through adversity, but can and should and must use it for good. I can't wait for you to watch the last few episodes of this series that I'm doing on my book, Burn the Map. And I'm going to bring Sean in for more episodes. And I have April, and I'm going to have a little guest appearance from my husband, Rich, because he has a section in this book and a story that Jamie's story has really overshadowed, but he went through something very difficult too. And he and Sean sit down to talk about it. So I look forward to seeing you, or you, if you're listening on a podcast app, to coming to you next week and for another episode of Burn the Map. And next week, what's coming up next week? Let's check it out. Oh, this is a good one. Wait, they're all good ones. It's called Unleash the Warrior. I will see you next week.